Bienvenidos. Welcome to the Careers Without Connections podcast, the podcast for underrepresented professionals building their careers from scratch and navigating unfamiliar spaces. I'm your host, Gianna Linares. I'm a first generation master's graduate and a first gen professional, which brings me to today's episode topic, which is how to create job opportunities for yourself as a first generation professional. As a first gen professional, you need to know how to navigate different tools and tactics to be able to be placed in front of people for the opportunities to get work. You need to know how to do this because a lot of first generation professionals, for example, like myself, I was raised by immigrants. So I am the first person in my family to graduate with a master's degree, period. And my brother and I are the first in our lineage to enter white collar corporate settings. As a first gen professional, it's important for you to know how to create opportunities for yourself. And that can look like a couple of different things. But the reason that you are typically in the position of having to create these opportunities, such as internships, interviews, job offers to begin with, is because you're coming from a background of your family doesn't really have a network to plug you into, right? Me personally, very proud of my background, but my mom grew up working at a grocery store and cleaning houses, and my dad works at a parts factory to this day. But when it came time for me to look for opportunities that were going to build my resume or improve my job prospects post graduation, they didn't have anyone to connect me to because of who they were working with. The people in their inner circle is either family from Latin America or their coworkers at the grocery store. There's a reason that saying your network is your net worth really applies because it's not always who you know, but what you know. That's why you see a lot of unqualified people getting jobs straight out of graduation that are maybe mid-entry level or you would think would take a couple years of experience to work their way up, because having the right connection is going to be able to get you in front of the right people, or is just going to allow you to bypass a lot of hurdles that other entry level professionals might be dealing with. That's just a privilege that they have the opportunity to leverage that they should be leveraging. But as someone who doesn't have that, in addition to most first gen professionals, we typically don't have familial funds. So it's challenging for us to do things like unpaid internships or really doing internships at all when we're going through college, because a lot of internships just don't pay very much, if at all, depending on which field you're in, right? For me personally, I couldn't afford to do internships when I was going through college because I was serving, which I did that for a reason. I was never someone who served because I enjoyed that customer servicey aspect thing. That was not it. The reason that I would serve was because it was the most time efficient way for me to make money and still have time to be able to study and get my homework done and go to class, of course. So that financial barrier is also an aspect of why you need to know how to create professional opportunities for yourself. But it's also very important to understand how to find the appropriate resources while you are going through school, or maybe after you've graduated and now you're entering the job market. These are all tools and strategies that I have had to learn and apply. At the time, not really understanding what I was doing. It was more coming out of a place of necessity, because if I wasn't doing these things, then I was either not going to have a job after I graduated or not going to have many job prospects at all, and potentially have to take a role that I'm really not excited about, which is often the case for a lot of recent graduates. I'm going to touch on a number of different types of ways to create job opportunities for yourself, such as networking. There's a bunch of different types of ways to network other than in person, which is going to events and job fairs and things like that. But there's also cold outreach, which is reaching out to someone that you don't know them, but you're introducing yourself and you're trying to make a connection that is going to either give you valuable insight or give you a valuable connection or maybe even a referral to where you're trying to go. The important thing about referrals is that they will statistically substantially increase the likelihood of you to get a role. About 30 to 50% of hires in workplaces come from referrals. And getting a referral when you are even just applying to a job is going to increase the likelihood of you getting an interview from 3% to up to 40%, according to LinkedIn research and statistics. Knowing how to network with people is ultimately going to help you build relationships that are going to be very valuable and increase your ability to navigate professional places and spaces as a first-time professional. In addition to networking, other important aspects that I've had to do and apply have been creating space for myself in unfamiliar professional spaces. I personally have gone to a lot of networking events or professional development spaces, not knowing a single person and not really having anyone around me sometimes that even looks like me or has a similar background to me, but having to figure out how to leave a good impression, but also leave a memorable impression. There's that piece of intentionally creating opportunities for yourself. And for me, that has looked like reaching out and asking, hey, is there an opportunity to contribute to your team? Are there opportunities to work with you, even if it's not actually a job that's like listed on their website or being posted or advertised? But that approach helped me get quite a number of jobs, actually. An example of that would be when I was in grad school, I reached out to the person that was overseeing my capstone project. She was the director of the county's Health and Human Services division, but I told her, hey, I'm looking for an internship this term. Do you by chance know anyone that I can speak to that could potentially need help in this area of work that I'm good at, which was research and policy analysis? And can you connect me to them? And she connected me to the director of the policy division for the county where I was living and going to school in. And they created an internship for me that was paid. And they let me essentially design the role because it didn't exist. I was like, hey, this is what I'm interested in and this is what I think I could do. And that made it that much easier for them as well because these are busy people. They don't want to have to think of what type of work can I delegate to this person. They want to bring you in to help. If you're able to just tell them, hey, here's how I can help you, here's what I'm going to do, well, that is just music to their ears because they can kind of just be around for questions, but you're mainly going to be pretty self-sufficient and that looks good on your part as well. How you're going to create job opportunities for yourself. Going back to that networking piece, there are a number of ways to network, and some people don't even know what networking is. When I went into school, I don't even really think the concept of networking was a thing for me until grad school. That was because my program literally had a class specifically related to professional development, developing as a professional, but also developing your career and understanding how to do that and why it's important. Everyone's always saying you have to network, but that can be a little confusing if you're unfamiliar with networking. You can do networking by going to in-person events. There are like happy hours. Sometimes there's events catered to specific professions or career fields, but there's also messaging people on LinkedIn, making connections with people on professional social media platforms such as LinkedIn. There's cold emailing, which is sending an email to someone and telling them, hey, this is who I am. Could we maybe get a coffee sometime? Could I ask you these questions? Could we set up a video call or a phone call for us to connect? And you could tell me about your profession and how I can get there. It could be literally just calling someone and saying, hey, I came across you when I was looking for opportunities with the company that you work for. I'm really interested in learning more. Can we talk? When you are networking, there is this piece that I feel like people don't really talk about online that in my experience, I felt like I consistently had to do, which was to create space for myself in the networking events and professional spaces that I was going to, because oftentimes, especially being a first-gen Latina and only 8% of Latinos go to grad school. I work in government and politics and policy, not a lot of Latinos in that space at all. So a lot of the events that I was interested in, I was oftentimes one of a few, if not the only one, that would show up to these things. And creating space for yourself, I think, is an important tool to understand because a lot of the times you go to these events and people already know each other or they're able to find that commonality amongst each other between maybe the type of work that they're doing or maybe just like what they look like. You go to events and you notice that people tend to kind of naturally distribute themselves into individual cliques. I cannot tell you how many times I have showed up to places by myself and I'm like, I gotta figure out how to weasel my way into one of these conversations, or I'm just gonna be standing here on the sidelines looking really awkward and having wasted my time coming here. So for me, creating space for myself in professional spaces, whether that be networking events, job fairs, or actual workplaces that I was working at, that looked like presenting myself well, like always wearing a professional outfit, even if they tell you that it's business casual or whatever, look good, feel good, do good. There's this phenomenon known as the halo effect, but it's essentially the more put together you look, the more polished you look, the more aesthetically, visually appealing you look to the eye, to other people, the more likely they are to treat you better and welcome you. And I feel like newer entry level professionals don't always understand is the importance of presenting yourself really well. In my opinion, there's no such thing as being overdressed. The way that you show up to a space says a lot about you and how you want to be received, but also how you want to be remember. One thing that I've done before is if I know there's going to be a specific person or a specific company or organization at an event that I'm interested in working for or connecting to, is I will see who's going to be there if I can find individual people, and I will research them and stalk them online and see what I can find out about them so that when I do go to the event and I make that intentional connection with them, then I'm able to kind of ask them about, oh, I saw that you did this work, or I saw that this news article published this about your work, or I saw that you were talking about this on LinkedIn. And then that immediately is going to tell them that you are standing on business and that you are not just there to show face, that you are prepared and interested in them and the work that they do. The other thing about creating space for yourself is showing up with confidence. That can literally just be your body language. How are you showing up to an event? How are you projecting your voice? If you're nervous about going someplace new and being unsure about how to introduce yourself, then practice before you get there. It's not even about what you say, but how you say it. If you are starting at building your career and you're showing up to spaces where everyone's kind of established, then say it with your chest. Say, hey, I'm looking for work. I literally did that one time. I showed up to an event with a bunch of experienced professionals and business owners. And when we went around and did brief introductions, I literally stepped up. I was like, hi, I'm Gianna. I'm looking for work. I don't live here. I'm trying to move here and I'm in the middle of my job search. I remember the president of the organization that was hosting the event was talking to me afterwards. And she was like, oh, wow, like, I love that you came here and you showed the initiative and you're so brave. And she was like, let's take a picture, post it on LinkedIn. And she reposted my post. And I got a bunch of connections from that and a couple of interviews also as a result of that. It just takes the one right connection and conversation to get you in front of the right people that will either present opportunities for you or be able to connect you to the opportunities. Another really important strategy that I employed over and over again when I was going through school was literally just creating professional opportunities for myself, because oftentimes I found myself in positions where I didn't know that the window had kind of passed to be applying for internships, that it was going to take 2, 3+ months, and I should have been applying and I should have been doing the networking, but I didn't have anyone to tell me that. So a lot of the times after the fact, when I was looking around for internships and I saw nothing, or the internships that I was seeing just didn't seem interesting, or just again, bad pay, then I would just ask. I would literally just find places that I was genuinely interested in their work and genuinely wanting to contribute. And I would reach out, and that immediately eliminates your competition because you're the only applicant in the pool. My last 2, 3 jobs I've gotten literally just by asking, hey, is there an opportunity to work for you and contribute to the work that your team is doing? And sometimes it'll be a no right now, but that may turn into a hey, there's something down the line. An example of this is one time I was in grad school and I had been advised by a mentor of mine that there was this professor who had acquired a very generous grant and he was doing research in the area of work that I was interested in. So I wanted more money, I wanted research experience, and I was interested in building my experience in the area of work that he was focusing his research on. So I made an appointment with him through his booking link and I was like, "Hi, this is who I am. This is what I've done. Is there any opportunity to work with you?" He said, "Sorry, no, not right now, but in the future, keep an eye out." In the future, I kept an eye out and an opportunity reopened. I interviewed, walked away from that interview, told my mentor the next day, I don't think it went well, but I did my best. The day after that, I get a call with an offer for the job. That job not only built up my experience on my resume before I graduated, but it was in the form of a position for my university that gave me a full tuition waiver for a whole term. And that professor actually ended up being a really important mentor of mine. It was my first experience having a mentor that had such similar lived experiences as me. He was also a first generation Latino. He was also raised by immigrants. It was such a wonderful, literally life changing experience. But the point of that is that a no turned into a yes 6 months plus later. Sometimes it's a long game, but those efforts that you put in compound and can open doors for you within 6 months to a year plus. I've had people even recently sending me jobs that I reached out to 6, 8 months ago. And they're like, hey, now we have something open. If you want to apply, like, let me know. So there's that more short term piece of how can I create professional opportunities for myself by networking and making connections and building relationships, that immediate thing. But there's also that long term of what if this is a no now, but a yes later? Or what if I start a job that I despise because I'm a first generation professional? I don't have people in my circle, in my network, in my household to advise me on these are the types of things you should consider that is going to be a good indicator of am I going to like this job? Am I going to like this work environment? But now that I have done that important work beforehand, now I have created opportunities for myself. Maybe one of the connections that I made in the past are going to present me with an opportunity or be able to help me get an opportunity that's going to take me out of that space that I'm unhappy in. Or there's also that what if I get a job that I'm not too happy about, that I feel overqualified for. That happened to me after I graduated with my master's degree. The first job I got out of my master's, I was actually serving right out of my master's because my contracts with my school ended. I graduated, I moved across the country, and I needed money. I needed to eat. I needed to pay my rent. But I ended up getting an internship that I had literally reached out to the employer that I ended up working for and said, hey, I just got my master's. I'm here now. I'm interested in supporting your work. Do you have any opportunities? They said, well, we don't have any full-time opportunities, but we can get you a paid internship. I took that opportunity knowing that I was severely overqualified for it, knowing that I wasn't going to be immediately making the money that I wanted to be making post grad, but I saw it as an opportunity and I saw it as a way to get my foot in the door and earn something that I felt I was better suited for. Within 2 months, they pulled me aside and they said, "We want to offer you a job as a full time policy analyst." Within 3 months, I had gotten that full time promotion. That is all I have to share today. If you made it to the end of the episode, thank you so much. Subscribe, follow. I post videos every single Sunday and leave comments because I never see people leave comments on podcasts, but feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I always respond to messages or questions or ideas about content that you want to see in the future. My TikTok/Instagram handle is just my first and last name at Gianna Linares. And thank you so much for listening again.